Good evening, everybody, and welcome. So I don't think you understand, Megan, but this is going to be my last chat room.
Oh,
Yeah, so you are the last guest on my little chat room. Jodie's busy, this time when people are getting back to normal, so things are starting to become quite busy again. So, yeah, so Megan, welcome. Please tell everyone who you are, what you do, and go from there.
cool. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on, Chris. I'm very honored that I'm the last guest, so thank you. I am Megan Prowse. I am a psychologist and also a CBT therapist, which is a cognitive behavioral therapist. I think we're going to get into what that is in a bit. But just to say that I specialize in helping people with kind of emotional distress on all sorts of different levels. At the moment, I'm specializing in helping people with trauma and also working with Chris to kind of help people get involved in combining fitness and mental health together. So really excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. So we had a title that we said was motivation is not just willpower. I mean, what's your interpretation of that in your sort of experience?
Yeah, I really love this title because I think that often we can really beat ourselves up, especially if you're trying to do something new like fitness or diet. And I'm speaking from my own experience as well as people that I work with. So I think thinking about motivation is kind of a multifaceted thing and a thing that's external to us. I find that really helpful. And so, what I think we need to consider is that there are many different elements, and in that way, it's a bit more complicated than just it being down to our willpower. We actually, as humans, have such a small reserve of willpower. And if you've had a really, I mean, we can all relate, if you've had a really stressful day and you've been using your willpower to eat really healthy, or you've been using your willpower to kind of suppress emotions at work and, not scream at your boss, by the end of the day, you really, really don't want to be going to the gym. So it's about remembering that, giving ourselves permission that motivation actually is many, many different areas. And also with that, then knowing that we can tap into our motivation in lots of different ways. So it's actually a positive thing. And it's also kind of letting us off the hook a little bit. And, if we're always expecting ourselves to just be on it with willpower, we're kind of setting ourselves up to fail. And I don't know how you find that, Chris, with your clients, but I know it's something that people consistently beat themselves up about when they talk to me about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that willpower, as you were just saying, that control of that autonomic nervous system and you suppressing or kind of keeping the lid on the pot, if you like, and that pressure, that heat just getting more and more and more, getting to that bubbling point, and it could be anything that just sort of sets you off. I want to eat rubbish. I want to have a drink at the end of the day, So I think, definitely tackling how to set that up and how to sort of eliminate that sort of pattern or that sort of trait that you would go back to, so that's something I definitely want to touch on with yourself, and any tips that you got with that. So how would you break down motivation? Is there certain stages that you would look at?
Yeah, in psychology, we think about there's this kind of theory called the stages of change model, which is about kind of where you're at with this particular goal that you have. And it kind of goes through a few different areas, which I won't go into loads of detail here, but it's basically saying like our motivation is based on how much, I guess this makes sense, how much we want that goal. But we start at a place of contemplation or pre-contemplation, which is where we're sort of thinking about it. We move into contemplation where we're thinking about it. Then we start to make a plan and move into action. And then we move into maintenance where we're keeping the plan going. Now, we can fall out of motivation at any of those stages. But the idea behind kind of using psychology is that we're trying to put a strategy onto that. So that strategy is, okay, where am I at with the cycle? And we have these conversations in many ways, and I'm sure you and I would be saying the same thing to clients, but probably in different language. But it would be basically, how much do you want this goal, and where are we on like a scale of 1 to 10 towards that goal? What's our commitment like? What are our lifestyles like? Is this kind of supporting this particular goal? So that's where I would always start, is like, where are people at? And I think that's important for everybody to kind of check in, because, we have so many goals we set for ourselves. There's so many like, I should be doing this, or I should be getting up early, or I should be doing more work, or sleeping more. But actually, when it comes down to it, we need to work out what our goal is that's important. So I would say that's the first thing is importance.
So the first thing you definitely look at is not kind of where they want to be, or how do you sort of say, well, in weight loss, if it was a weight loss, I want to drop a stone, okay, now let's see where you're at, how long is that going to take you? Or would you go, this is where you're at now, where do you want to be? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think a bit of that. I'd kind of check in with where they're at now, where they want to be. But I would kind of take it back a step and think, where are they at emotionally? Because that's where we're coming from with psychology. Really, is we're looking to change behavior, but we're looking at what are my beliefs and what are my emotions around that. So I would be like, okay, well, my beliefs about that are I really want to change, but I can't because of X, Y, Z. And
so
it's
you go through that sort of like three whys, like why do you want to do that? Because of this. Why do you want to do that? Because so that's how I kind of interpret clients when they're talking to me about their weight loss or their muscle gain or whatever it is. It's like, why does this want to happen? Well, because of this. Why does that? Well, because I've got family history. Well, why? Because I have, you know, just been told I'm pre-diabetic. So you kind of get to that root issue and that root cause. It's not just because I've got to lose a stone. You're sort of working through them little layers to get to that actual psychological reason. Is that kind of?
Yeah, exactly. I think we need the why because that determines the level of importance and where we're at with how important a particular goal is. And if it's something to do with diabetes or wanting to be there for the family, obviously those are really serious. But actually, what we find is even if the goal has got a really good why, sometimes people still don't do it. I mean, a lot about self-sabotage. Sometimes there might be some people that are really really unwell, really want to change but actually just can't. So I would also go to the why not. So
Okay.
I would be going, what's getting in the way? Let's be really honest about what all your beliefs are. Is it I can't because it's too late? I can't because I've got too many commitments. Don't have any time. I'm sure that you could reel off all
Yeah.
the and we all do it. I do it in my own life. Or I can't do this because I've got in from work and I'm super tired, can't be asked, whatever it might be. And
Yeah.
actually, I think we've got to lay out all the whys and then all the why nots, because when we see that, and I always get people to write things down all the time, because once it's out of your head, it's on paper, and we can start to tackle it. And, even doing that for yourself, if you're at home, having a why column and why not, not so much of pros and cons, but the actual beliefs behind what's stopping you and what's getting in the way.
I think also exactly what you just said. Writing it down is a really important factor that I've definitely learned through lockdown. A friend of mine that has been sort of mentoring me through business, etc., and he was talking about actually crystallizing what your thoughts are. So I could have all these thoughts and processes of bubbling my pot up, if you like, of it all going around in my head. But as soon as I started writing it down and I was doing it more visually through like a mind mapping sort of board sort of thing, as soon as I got it out, it seemed like my head was like less congested. Do you see what I'm saying? And I keep referring back to them mind maps, or keep referring back to what the whys and the why nots, which is really useful, I guess, when you're sort of, oh, I don't know, might not be the right path for me to go down. Now, hang on, let's just go back, let's reevaluate what we've set out. So I think that's a really useful thing for everyone to be doing.
Yeah, I think the mind maps are amazing because there's so much stuff we can hold in our minds, and I don't know about you, but if there's stuff in my head that I haven't got out on paper, it just the way that our mind goes is this element of rumination, which is quite literally to kind of chew over. So it will just keep going around the same stuff, and then you just feel more and more stuck. So you
Yeah.
need to kind of get it out and look at, okay, why is it? And why am I not doing it? And just being really honest, because actually that's the kind of underlayer. If we don't deal with underlayer, then any strategy that you put on top, whether it be an action plan, setting up your environment, all these other things that make up motivation are just going to be lost, and you're going to keep reinforcing those beliefs that you can't. So I think beliefs and thoughts are a really good place to start psychologically. I would always go there.
That's a great way. That's a great way. So just to recap, so you're basically saying figure out what it is that you kind of want to get to, or where you kind of want to be. Write down the whys, why you want to be there, and the why nots, why haven't you not achieved that? And then what would be the next stage on from there?
The next stage is, depending on obviously what you've got from that, you might be able to see what your blocks are. So sometimes people have real emotional blocks, you know, not believing that you can do something. Sometimes it's quite practical blocks about, you know, having the time or having the space to work out or having any of those. So depending on that, you can go down different routes. Let's say that it is more of a practical block, or you think it's a practical at first, then I would be looking at your environment. So one of the things to remember is if we're not relying on willpower, which means that you need to set, let's imagine that you come in from work and you have no willpower, absolutely nothing left, then what's the easiest way to get you to switch into whatever it is? I mean, we're talking fitness, aren't we? Or food,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
cooking a healthy meal, whatever it might be. Let's say it's kind of working out. What I would do is set your environment up so you literally just kind of flow through your house towards your workout area, you know, like get things out of, like, sounds really silly, but it's like get things out of the way, or set up your workout area before you leave the house. Have your shoes already there if you're wearing shoes, you know, have something comfy that you want to wear, like quite literally set it up so that it's the easiest thing in the world, you know. Sometimes I would put like my workout clothes on the sofa, so if I'm going to sit down and be, you know, having a chill out, I
damn
have
it, God damn it.
no, you have to wear that.
And I think, that was another question I was going to say. The other thing, obviously, for us is being accountable to someone, actually having someone that you're having an appointment with, or, someone that you are going to the gym with, or, it doesn't have to be going to the gym, anything from getting out of the house to chilling out to having a conversation, it's anything that kind of, you need to be accountable. I like that, to be accountable to someone, and that definitely motivates yourself through of moving forward.
Yeah, it's having all of that support, isn't it? And even like I put little reminders in my sort of phone calendar, or have alarms, those kind of little things. It's trying to kind of break, when you're trying to break any habit, as we know, you've got to set things up as best you can to, interrupt that normal cycle. So if you normally come in, I kind of had a pattern where I would come in, go get some snacks, and then sit on the sofa. And I was like, right, okay, well, I need to, interrupt that process of kind of coming in and doing that. So it's like, okay, well, maybe move the snacks, or kind of set your environment up so there are things in the way, like your workout clothes, or, and I think it's really important that you kind of do those things so that you don't end up, because you could come in and end up feeling really bad about yourself. Okay, I haven't done that today. Oh, I really wanted to do that. That's actually really important. And it's for the long run, so that you don't kind of chip away at those beliefs and continue to feel like you can't do it. So yeah, it's environment, support from other people, support kind of in your own life in terms of reminders, or kind of, you can put post-its up around the kitchen. So it's either post it up just to remind me to have lemon water first thing in the morning, and that's my one goal at the moment. So it's about, setting your environment up.
Yeah, I mean, the good example that I use with a lot of people is, stuff that you've been embedded as a child. Like my little boy is teaching him how to clean his teeth before he goes to bed. So, there's a toothbrush, put it in his hand, toothpaste, yeah, cleans his teeth. Well, he tickles his teeth. That's what we say, right? Tickles his teeth, right? So it's the same thing. Now, the end result is that he cleans his teeth. Now, if we didn't have any toothpaste, the end result would be that he's unable to clean his teeth. So there's a different outcome of that situation. So what you're saying is if you're setting things up, you take your gym bag into your car, or you take it with you to work, there might be a fact that you might not go to the gym, but the fact is that there'll be a different outcome at the end of it. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, completely. I think setting it up. I think one big aspect that I think can get in the way as well is kind of, when you're, let's say you put the gym bag there or whatever, and you're kind of feeling, tired or whatever, I would also check in with how big your goal is. I know, and any perfectionists watching will relate to this, but the tendency to kind of overestimate what you're going to achieve and then feel really bad when you don't, just again puts us back in that rut of feeling really crap about ourselves. So I would also check in, and I would say err on the side of setting a much smaller goal than you want. So, literally like one new thing, you're going to try one new thing for the month. And Chris, you and I have talked about this before, and that checking that you're not adding too many variables to make the change. You know, it's one thing whether it's, as I said, for me at the moment, it's making sure I have lemon water first in the morning, because that kind of helps with skin and clearing things out. And that's like my one thing. And I feel great because I'm able to do that. If I had said, okay, lemon water, then I need to, you know, have a super healthy diet all day, then I need to work out. You know, I know that that's our temptation once we you know, want to be healthy, but I think it's about checking that your goal isn't too big, and try and scale it back. And I don't know how you find that, but that definitely helps me and people.
I think, you know, when people first come for a consult, they come to talk to you. Right, I need to come to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Okay, that's not the case. You know, generally when people come to see a trainer or coach, you know, it's the fact that, oh, I need to lose weight, or, you know, I need to get healthier. Okay, well then we go back to the same reasons of what we just said. You've got to ask the reasons why. Yeah, but there needs to be a purpose of why you're doing it. If you're just doing it because your wife's told you you've got to go to the gym and lose a few pounds, that's not the biggest reason. You know, and for me, having people contact me, oh, my wife wants to come and see you. Okay, cool. Get her to call me. Because as soon as they've made that commitment, that call, I know they're already 50% there. Yeah. So I think that, you know, motivation and keeping your small little goals achieving. I was meant to call you a year ago, you know, do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's cool. You know, it's taking that time for you to make these small little changes before you've made that bigger change in your head. So yeah, I think that's a really important factor, that small little changes, even if you went and done a small workout for 10-15 minutes, rather than thinking I've got to do a 45-minute heavy session and then I've got to do the same tomorrow. And you know, just small little challenges, I think is really important. The biggest thing that the biggest thing I guess people are kind of getting through is that fear of change. Yeah, I mean, how do you treat, or how do you go about helping people with that level of fear?
Yeah, I think this comes back to kind of the emotions and the beliefs, I guess, behind the change. And you know, it's a really real thing, you know, this fear of change. If you think about us as humans, you know, we know that we're creatures of habit. We know that we don't actually like to be out of our comfort zone. You know, historically, you know, if there was any kind of change in our environment, it's normally a threat. So our brain, and particularly the older part of our brain, which is kind of our limbic system, that's where all of our kind of more primitive emotions like fear are processed. And actually that part of our brain hasn't changed very much in the last however many years since we were in the caves. So it's just to remember that your brain is wired to look out for threat, and threat is change. You know, back when we were living as cavemen and women, you know, as I said, if there was something out of the ordinary, it was normally dangerous. So I think the first thing, and this is where I always come from, is first thing is understanding how our brain works, and understanding that it's okay that you're scared of change. That actually means your brain's working perfectly well. The problem is for us that we now, obviously not so much in danger, hopefully,
Yeah.
we still have those reactions. And I guess this is really relevant for COVID as well. You know, so many people at the moment are dealing with anxiety, and the fallout of them then being depression. And I think, you know, there's so much change going on. So I think the first thing is to acknowledge and be compassionate towards ourselves and say, okay, there's change going on. My brain doesn't like it. Now, what can I do about that? And I guess it comes back to with something like fear, for me, because it's so physical, I would actually say one of the first things to do is to deal with your body. Because often, and I don't know if anybody has ever had that experience, but you could be sitting at your desk, nothing's going on, and you start to feel really anxious or really on edge, and your body is reacting to something. You're like, what the hell am I reacting to? And there's nothing going on. And so with fear as a kind of concept, I would be thinking about kind of how is it in my body? Where am I feeling it? Is it in my stomach? Am I not wanting to eat? Am I not sleeping very well? Am I feeling shaky? And I would tackle the body first. And I would be thinking about trying to change our state, because our body actually dictates often then our emotions, and that then dictates our behavior.
Yeah, totally.
I think the first place for me would be, you know, this system, and I know you talk a lot about sympathetic and parasympathetic, it's to calm that system down, because we can't think clearly when we're in that state. And I know we're talking fear of change might be more of an underlying kind of ongoing fear, but actually it's about when you're going through that change, trying to check in with what your body's doing and trying to change your state to break out of that physical space.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when the body is in that massively stressed state, as in, okay, we're talking about health. So you're malnutrition, you're not hydrated enough, you haven't got enough sleep, your environment is stressful. Your vessel, your body, to have the strength, yeah, and the motivation to make change is nearly impossible. So I think when people start to eat cleaner, I mean, we go through these things that you can physically change, and this is why people come to see us to start with. But fundamentally, you know, as we were talking, the environment is the major thing that's stressing out the system. Yeah, it could be that you are on, you know, you do night shifts. Your body's not geared up for doing night shifts. Some people's bodies are geared up for doing night shifts, or, you know, a lot of air hostesses, or, you know, traveling, or, you know, there's all these things that will stress out that environment for that body. So I think going back to making sure that the body, the vessel, is in the less stressed state to then deal with them emotional fears. That's how I've always dealt with it. So if the body is betterly nutritioned, if it's hydrated better, if the person fundamentally through these things have done some form of exercise, so they sleep a little bit better as well, then we can, then in my opinion, that tackling then that level of fear or that level of change becomes slightly easier. Would you kind of suggest that's sort of the same part?
Completely. I would go with body first if it's something like fear, and then we would scale back to kind of emotions and beliefs again. I would want to check out, you know, what are the fears there, and what's going on. You know, I work with people who deal with trauma, and PTSD particularly, and that is exactly that reaction. So kind of they're not in the same situation that they were at the time, but their bodies respond in the same way, because in some ways it's learnt. And like with any learnt behavior, I think we've got to try and break that by teaching our body something new, and teaching that, you know, those outcomes or whatever we're scared of are not necessarily going to happen again. And that's really hard, because logically you might be like, yeah, I know that's not going to happen. I'm all cool. I want this change. But your body has learned something else. So I would say it's about tapping into and calming that system down, whether it's a bit of meditation before you're going out for your day, or doing your workout, whatever it might be, or whether it's, you know, making sure you're sleeping enough. As you said, all of those things are going to just calm that system down. Drinking enough water, breathing properly. You'll be surprised how many people, and this myself, when I get stressed, do not breathe properly. So yeah, start with the body, and then again, I would be kind of going in with a little bit and trying to ask myself, what is it I'm scared of? What do I think is going to happen? What's the worst that's going to happen? And write that down. And then again, you've got it. And this is where kind of psychology comes in, and we would work on, you know, together, because all these things are, in terms of emotions and beliefs, are really hard to do on your own. But if you can get to the stage where you write them down, and then you can at least identify, okay, where are my blocks? Then that would be to take to, you know, us or somebody like us who would be able to help break down some of those with you, go through those kind of beliefs. But yeah, I would start with the body and then go to emotions and beliefs. And to relearn something, it's again just thinking about it as a habit and going really slow.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing that I've learned about change is, again, I'm just going to relate this to, you know, someone going out for, you know, COVID, they've started running, yeah, and they've done, I've got to go running. So they start out with 2K, and they're like, oh my God, that was painful. You know, that was not nice. That was uncomfortable. I'm quite worried and fearful of, you know, how that actually made me feel and got me out of breath. You go out the next week, you do 3K, you do 5K, your body adapts, and you change, right? That change to me is called growth. If someone comes to me that wants bigger shoulders, bigger legs, unfortunately, you're going to go through some change and pain and frustration and discomfort to allow you to achieve what you want to achieve. That's growth. So when I'm ever making decisions, and I've made a lot of decisions over these last 4 or 5 months in relation to business, family life, etc., that I'm always worried and fearful that, am I making the right decision? However, what I've discovered is that what I was doing before wasn't where I wanted to be. So the only strategy I can do is to make a change. Now, if that change and I feel uncomfortable, I know that I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm moving forward. I don't know if it's the right direction forward. It could be sideways, could be backwards. But however, it's going to give me a different outcome at the end of it. Now, I might like that outcome. If I don't like that outcome, I make a different change. I feel uncomfortable, I'm changing again. And I think that's where people become safe in this. This is all I know. You know, I've been working for 30, 40 years, got to go back to work because they've told me I've got to go. Well, do you really have to? Do you have to do that job anymore? Do you have to get up at that time? Do you have to do that amount of clients? Do you have to da, 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 da. So I think that and this I think is a great time. You know, I've had clients already. Today I've had a couple of clients that have gone, right, we're going back. Things that they've just done over the last 4 or 5 months, they made them feel so much better. They've made massive changes. They've had weight loss. They've gone, you know, their fitness has increased, their sleep is better, they feel amazing. Then they're going to go back to that default stage of going back to doing their 9 to 5 job, and I know already that they're going to go back to where they was pre-lockdown. So the next question I want to ask you is, what tips can you give to sort of stop them going back to that default process? Is it you go back to the whys and the why nots? I mean, this is a fantastic time for people to be doing it now, before they go back in maybe September or whenever they go back to full-time work, or if we do go back to full-time work. But people seem to be getting ready to go back to full-time work. So yeah, what tips have you got to stop them going back to that sort of default mode?
Yeah, I think what you're saying about the first thing being kind of understanding that with any growth and with a different outcome comes a lot of discomfort. I think that's the first thing, is like, let's just get used to that idea, because that idea in itself is huge for all of us. You know, as well as I said, there's so many things going on, we're all feeling a little bit lost, a little bit at sea, but just knowing that this isn't forever, this is temporary, and how we feel right now is going to, hopefully, if we can flow with it and make the changes we need to make, is going to lead to a really good outcome. So I would say the first thing is to acknowledge, okay, I'm going to feel uncomfortable, and yeah, I would go back to the whys not, the reminders. And if you need to remind yourself, again, write it down. Why are you doing this to yourself? You know, you don't want to do it, but it's going to be for a good reason. And one of the things that I have learned actually really recently through this situation is the importance of visualization.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is something that you use with people, but the idea of taking a minute or two just to think about, okay, what do I actually want? Where do I want to be? You know, what do I want it to look like? What will I be doing if I'm in that situation? That has been, you know, a really nice exercise, because at the moment, who knows what the hell things are going to look like. So let's kind of create that reality for ourselves and see how we can move towards that and what we can do. And the other thing,
It's very difficult. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's very difficult sometimes to visualize that if you've never had it. So, for example, if there was a particular car that you wanted, why not just go and sit in one, or go to a showroom, or if there was a certain house that you wanted? You know, it seems everyone's moving at the moment. You know, here's my budget, but I want this price of house. Go and have a look at them. Yeah, go and, you know, at the moment it's a bit difficult to go and see them, but go to them, have a look, go, yeah, actually this is where I want to be. So actually physically being there, seeing it, touching it, smelling it, you know, I think that is a very important input into now becoming a reality of what it is that you do want. Actually, it's too big, or the garden's too big, or actually it looks too flash, I don't like that. Or, you know, I think it's a really good way to kind of feel that emotion, not just, you know, a visualization I think is amazing, and I constantly got vision boards everywhere and all my, you know, iPads and phones and whatever. But it's the fact that I think feeling it and actually embracing that moment, I think that's been a game changer for me to actually, move.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think if you haven't been there, or you've got beliefs blocking, you know, you're thinking that you don't deserve it, or you can't get it, that's going to be something in the way. But either way, that's important to learn when you go through the exercise. I agree with you. Putting yourself physically there makes your mindset shift anyway, so that's really good. The other thing I would say is, if you're having trouble visualizing where you want to be, let's visualize you staying in the same place. You know, if you imagine yourself staying exactly as you are, as you said, you know, trying to think about that default. Well, let me imagine that default. Let me imagine that default for 5 to 10 years more. And what does that feel like? What does that look like? And that sometimes is more almost the negative, or the drawbacks are more powerful for us, because we actually, as creatures, will do pretty much anything to avoid pain. And if we can take it from a bit of a painful stance, I know that sounds awful, obviously within reason, but you know, thinking about what we don't want is sometimes that step that we need, or that push that we need, because we don't imagine, you know, what it's going to be like in 5 years if we don't do what we want.
A lot of people won't want to visualize it. You know, if you've got a bad back, knee, you go and see a chiro or osteo, or you know, you would pay whatever you need to pay to go and see the best person to get it sorted. You know, because I've got, this is debilitating. It's really really sore, but until you start understanding what that emotional pain is like, and if you keep suppressing it, yeah, if I just let this back pain, it'll go away. It'll go away. Over time, you're going to get arthritis. You're going to have major problems in your hips and da 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 da. You might not be able to walk. You know, that's 10 years on. People can already feel that because they've kind of maybe already experienced it. But talking to someone about their emotion, my experience is like, okay, so how would that, you know, in 4 or 5 years time, you know, how are you going to feel about that? And they don't really want to talk about it. So I guess, how do you deal with that sort of situation? Do you just come back to it another time? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, it's not a nice thing to think or talk about, but I would say, again, it's checking in your body, because often, you know, you can feel that discomfort in your body. And I would say, you know, don't necessarily need to talk about it, but if you take some time to yourself, if you can be brave enough to write down the fact that, you know, this is what might happen, and you know, these are the things that I can foresee. And also, you know, people can kind of there's this idea of kind of gut knowing, you know, you can kind of feel it inside that something isn't right. And again, that kind of comes down to the emotions. But yeah, obviously that part is really difficult to tackle on your own, and you don't have to. I guess it's just acknowledging that that's just the motivation to be like, okay, am I cool? Am I comfortable with where I'm at? It's kind of a tool just for that, to check in. Am I all right with where I'm at, or do I want to change? Okay, now I want to change. Let's look at what I want, why I want it. Let's see then, what are my blocks, what's getting in the way, and let me try and use these strategies to break myself out of these habits in a slow, very graded way. You know, the other thing about fear is, whenever I see somebody that has a phobia, for example, I wouldn't, you know, let's say they've got a spider phobia, I wouldn't, you know, give them a bunch of spiders to hold all at once, or, you know, be surrounded by spiders. That would be kind of torture. So I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. But what I would say is, okay, well, let's maybe have a look at a spider from afar. Let's kind of just get used to the idea that there's one over there in the bush. Let's move slowly towards it. Let's, you know, and the same with any other phobia, is that it has to be step by step. And if you've got a real fear, a real block around change, and you think, actually, there's not really practical reasons that are in the way, it's just that I feel out of my comfort zone, then just like with any other phobia, we have to see change as our big phobia, as our spider. You know, change is our huge spider. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to move really slowly towards it. We're going to change one thing. We're going to see how we feel. Okay, that's not so bad. Let me try and change something else. So
Yeah,
I would kind of take that sort of strategy as well, if you're feeling really, really scared at the moment of changing things.
cool. I think that's great advice. You know, the fact that, just kind of going back to where we originally started, of understanding where your particular goal that you want to be, you know, the whys, why you want to be there, the why nots, why aren't you there. I think that's something that I've not ever really done before, so that's a really useful tip for me to take on to my customers. And then building them strategies in, and understanding that change is the development and the growth to get you to that why of why you haven't got there yet. And on the way, tackling the why nots and why these barriers come up. I mean, I guess, you know, the things that they want to achieve could change. You know, they could get there and go, actually, this is not what I want. Say personally, you know, I could get to this point and go, actually, this is not where I wanted to be. That's okay. I've ticked that off my list. I can move on to the next sort of change. But no, I think change and growth, I think people can relate to a physical change, you know. And if anyone's done a diet or a training program, or, you know, a marathon, or there's going to be grief, there's going to be, you know, change in your system, people can understand, they can relate to that. But changing that level of emotion, I think if you think about it in the same process, it's easy for us to understand. You don't need to understand it, but the fact that I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm moving into a different outcome. I think that's
Yeah.
a really
And
important.
and one of the things that I think about when we talk about kind of fitness, or you know, the title I really like is emotional fitness. When we think about that, one of the reasons I love that is because actually our emotions, or what we get used to emotionally, in terms of you thinking about, you know, feeling uncomfortable but doing it anyway, that I think of as like a muscle. So just as we have to train our physical muscles, we have to train our emotional muscles too. And being able to be uncomfortable is a bit of a muscle if it's going to be for good. So it's just remembering that just because you're uncomfortable as you are physically on that first run, and you're uncomfortable emotionally, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It means that, you know, you just need to keep at it, or kind of, you know, do it in increments and keep going with it. So we can think about emotions the same way as we think about our physical fitness. I think we'll be really well set up to kind of work towards that motivation, and achieve that goal we want to achieve.
Amazing, amazing. So obviously, you know, we've got a great person on our team right now. So Dr. Prowse, I appreciate you being a part of, you know, my group, and something that my customers can definitely benefit from. Just so people can know, obviously they can come, you guys can come through me, and I can pass you on to Megan. But Megan, where can people sort of find you, get in contact with you if they want any advice? Because I think it's important, you know, for people to have a transformation in weight loss or gut health or brain function. You know, you need something to follow. You need a plan to follow. Yeah. I don't think you need someone to ask the right questions, or the questions that you don't want to answer. And so I think people need someone like you in there. You know, it's like there's physios, like their chiropractors, like their PTs, like their nutritionists. I think they need someone like yourself in their team to help them develop. Yeah, and to allow them to perform better. You know, I'm talking on a physical level, but it could be anything, through business, through family life. It could be any growth and development. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so as you said, through your page, I'm on your site, and I also have a blog and an Instagram, which is City Psych Chick, and I have my email address, which is prowsemegan@gmail.com. So if you want to get through to kind of book in a session, then either go through Chris or come to me direct.
Amazing. So one last question that I ask every guest that's been on: what books or who are you influenced by at the moment that we could have a little look at?
Mhm. I have just, this is quite a controversial one, but I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah.
I have just been sort of looking at and kind of being a part of the comeback challenge with Tony Robbins. So he's got some really interesting kind of methods and theories, and I'm kind of looking into that at the moment. He does a lot of visualization, so I'm trying that out for myself and kind of looking into that. But yeah, if you're wanting more kind of CBT or sort of set psychology kind of tips and strategies, I'm developing my own, and some with Chris as well. So we'll be kind of able to give you those as well, workbooks and things like that to take and do at home.
Amazing. Megan, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for being my last guest. Yay!
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you all soon. Take care. Bye now.